So guys, I was going through my channel and I was looking at all the water deck profiles that I've done previously, and I think it's fair to say that I've done quite a lot, but there are a few that are desperately needing an update. Marincess we did last week, so obviously that was on 5, but now it's on to 6. There's a few on here that are really old now with their profiles. They're still good, go watch them if you can, but they desperately need an update. And I think there's one deck in here that I love playing and it desperately needs an update. I just haven't had a chance to do it in so long, but now I feel like it's the time to do this deck profile. Yeah. Hi guys, Freaky Fish Guy here with another profile for you today. Today we have Paleo Frog. If you've been on my channel for a while, you know that Paleo Frog is probably the deck I play the most as my go-to fun yet rogue deck. I've been playing this deck now for about 4 years on and off, and it is probably still one of my favourite decks that I play in Yu-Gi-Oh! Unfortunately, in today's metagame, they are kind of like lackluster compared to things like Eldritch, because Eldritch basically is a better version of Paleo, but there are still some fun things Paleo can do that Eldritch can't. I've played this deck at about 3 locals now. I like to swap decks every 2 weeks just so I can have a competent look at many different decks. A, for the channel, and B, just because I'm curious and I like to play many different decks. But Paleo is one I like to go back to. The 3 locals I've played this deck, I've always finished in the top half. The most recent one I came 5th out of 14, so it's not the worst deck. It can still beat the current meta, so I played 2 Dogma, Shoutout, Eldritch, Invoked, Messes. I played a Prankers and I played a Earth Machine in most recent locals, and the only loss I had was to the Earth Machine. This deck isn't perfect. There are a few things I will change that I will go through as I talk about the deck, but very simply I still think this deck is a good budget rogue option for those who want to play some frogs. Onto the main deck then. Obviously with our frog engine we're playing 3 swap, 3 dupe, 2 Ronin. This is your standard frog engine to make Toad turn 1, or just basically grind out the game. Swap, you can special summon it by discarding a water. Dupe, if it's destroyed, you can send to the grave, you can add a frog, but it misses timing a lot. And Ronin, you banish an aqua from grave to special summon it. That's pretty much all you need to know. Swap frog on normal summon or special summon sends a aqua. One of these do from deck to grave. And then for hand traps, we're just playing 3 Ash. So yes, while Ash here is here to stop Resource Fusion, it's also good against many other decks. If you're playing against our Dragon Link, this should be a Droll or a Niburu. If it's against things like Invoked, it should be a Lancia. Again, versus Dino's Lancia. It doesn't need to be a hand trap. This could be some more traps. It could be some Torrential Tributes that I'm not actually playing in the main deck. We'll go through why in a minute. And then on to spells. That's it. That's all the spells we're playing. A lot of people are playing Scapegoat. I don't like to play Scapegoat in this deck just for reasons involving basically Niburu as a card now, and they won't really play Niburu against Paleo, but game 1 it's still a thing that a lot of people are playing because again Dragon Link, and you have to devote so many spaces in your extra deck to it that I just don't like Scapegoat. So the only 3 spells we're playing is Pot Desires, banish 10 cards, draw 2. You don't really care what you banish. Your worst case scenario is you banish both your Ronin, at which point you just have to fall back on your Paleos to summon themselves. Something the deck does struggle with is having that consistent draw power. So some people play Reckless Greed. I don't, just because I feel like all you're drawing into is more traps, which are then dead that turn, and you're skipping 2 draw phases. So it's not my favourite kind of trap card. I don't like Reckless, but if you can think of some other draw cards, so maybe Magician's Souls, I do have them, but I'm not playing them here, but I may do a Souls version of Paleo at some point. But yeah, draw power is important in the deck. On to purple cards, 3 Dynamiscus, 3 Canadia, 3 Olonoides, 2 Morella. This has always been my standard Paleo lineup and it hasn't changed. Dynamiscus is a great removal. It just gets rid of anything you want to. Spells, traps, monsters, anything that's face up. Can also out things like Winder. It can also out things like dinosaurs in the battle phase. Can out all those problem dragon cards and banish them so they can't actually use them in the later turns. Canadia's Book of Moon, which is great versus things like Prank Kids. On normal summon, you just Book of Moon it, and unless they Howl Draw Pandemonium, they're going to be stuck. Olonoides MST hits Shoutout Schism, hits Meltdown Search, hits Dragon Ravine, hits Boot Sector. Those are things that MST does hit in this meta game, so I'm quite happy playing Olonoides. And then Morella is that weird role where it just Foolish Burials a spell or trap. You basically send Lost Wind. More importantly, it will trigger your Paleo trap. So if you just open Dynamiscus and like all the other active traps, you don't have a way of triggering your Paleos without your opponent doing something, because you don't want to waste your spells and traps. So Morella you can just activate at any point to summon a Paleo and also dump things like Lost Wind or another Paleo if you don't need it. On Paleo traps, we're playing 3 Ice Dragon's Prison IDP. It is an amazing trap, and yes, unfortunately, you do need to have this card to play this deck competitively. It is quite pricey, but if you find them for cheap, just grab them. They are worth it in every way. Outs every problem card that you need. If you're struggling for damage, you can just steal something big from opponent's graveyard, Monster Reborn style, and punch them in the face with it. It's a great card with loads of good matchups. Only bad sides is against prank kids. You normally set it out because there's so many different types. It's not really that relevant. 2 Compulse. I'm playing Compulse. This could be TT, but I'm playing Compulse just because my locals has a lot of invoked Shoutout Dogma, and if I just get punched in the face with a Winder every game, then a TT won't do anything about it. So the Compulse is here just to stop that. It's also, again, good against your normal summon prank kids because you can just bounce that. That's another thing a lot of my locals people are playing. So I'm just playing Compulse because I see it as a good all-around trap. Against Dino, if they discard Misk, TT isn't going to do anything as well. So in the battle phase, you can just Compulse the conduct Tyranno and hopefully set up into some negation for next turn or some more interruption. Playing 2 Lost Wind. Again, these are all 2-offs as well because we're also playing 2 Trap Trick. So if I need to, I can just Trap Trick out a Compulse. If I banish the other Paleos off of Desires, Lost Wind is there to send off Morella and then basically regurgitate itself and like grind out our opponent. Trap Trick's there to get any trap we need. I played 2 Trap Trick, not 3, because if I open 2 Trap Trick, it is dead. Whereas if I open 1 and a bunch of other traps, I'm happy with that, I'm fine. And then finally, the Solemn Brigade. Unfortunately, Judgment is definitely needed in the main deck this format. You've got Storm, Evenly, Duster, Reboot, all these cards that are really played with things like Dogma, Eldritch, invoked around that. You just need to play the Judgment to stop these blowout cards. Strike is just an all-around good card because it's in like a negate. Paleo don't really have negates. They're more of a one-to-one trade with their trap cards. So having a Solemn Strike negate for those monster negations is also really, really good. So guys, is that part of the video where I give a shout out to another channel that I personally watch. Once again, I've never been asked or paid to do this. This is something I do voluntarily to show some love to those channels which are very good for the community. This week's shout out goes to DB Grinder. This is a channel that a lot of people are now discovering with COVID lockdown. He's grown exponentially in the past few months. He covers top rated games on Dueling Book, and if you want to get better at the game and learn some more high intensity gameplay mechanics of your favorite decks, this is the channel to watch. I've got a link in the description to his channel, but again, if you want to watch how to play your decks at the highest level, go check out his channel. He has definitely got some good commentary, and it's sometimes just good to stick them on in the background and watch his replays. Moving on then to the extra deck, we are obviously playing 3 Toad. This is the reason I love playing this deck. These are the different Toads to my Shark profile. Please check that out. That was from last week. I have 6 Toad because this card is insanely good. In this deck, you can detach when there's down by face, summon a Frog from deck. You summon Dupe Frog for some defensive plays. You summon Swap Frog for your offensive plays, depending on what the other cards you have on your field / in your hand. 2 Paleozoic Epibana and 1 Anomalocaris. That's our Paleo XYZs. Anomalocaris, a lot of people don't know, is basically a Dryden that's unaffected by monster effects. And if a trap is sent from your field to the grave, you get to excavate 1, mill it if it's a monster, add it to your hand if it's a trap. This is my favourite Paleo card. It's won me so many games this last 2 locals because they just don't know how to out it, pretty much. Epibana's just basically detach 1, search Paleo trap, and you can activate Paleozoic traps from your hand. This means MST is now a quick play spell. So, sorry, Epibana is now MST. Dynamiscus is a quick play discard banish 1, which is insane. Canadia is actually Book of Moon. So this card makes your Paleo traps a lot more offensive, which is great. Rounding out our rank 2s, playing 1 Sky Cav. This is our out 2 Dragoon, as well as our Zeus access, because it can't be destroyed by battle. So you just make it, ramming it into something, can't be destroyed, then make Zeus. Unfortunately, I don't have a download Magician, but if you have down Magician, you play it here, because you can go 2 Frogs into Sky Cav, attack, make downward, make Zeus. That's 2 sends off Zeus, because you've got 4 materials. At the moment, I only have Sky Cav, so I'm only getting 1 send off Zeus and a bounce off Sky Cav. But yeah, ideally you want to have a downward, so instead of playing Gravity Controller, and then finally 2 Zeus. Zeus, again, is one of those really expensive cards, but is worth its price tag. But just being able to go second to make a Sky Cav attack, send the board is insanely good. And if you attack with a Toad in grind game, you can just slap a Zeus on top and basically ensure you have some insurance about just sending the board if everything goes wrong. Cool thing about the Zeus and your Paleos, all the Paleos, including the trap cards when you summon themselves back, are unaffected by monster effects. So if you Zeus the board with Paleo XYZs or Paleo traps on board, your Paleo stuff will stay, which not a lot of people know about. So it's basically I just send you a board and I get to keep my board to make a Toad next turn. Onto links, playing 1 Mistar Boy to get some damage in along with a crawling enemy. You can make a crawling enemy for a free 2k damage if you open swap plus a frog. Nightmare Phoenix for some removal, as well as Nightmare Unicorn, and then finally Boral Sword for some OTKs. Normally, at the end of the video, I showcase a combo, but with Payload, there's not really any strict combos. You just open up your traps and see if you can interrupt your opponent any way you can. So I'm actually going to go through my personal side deck for this deck for the May 2021 format. So we're playing 3 Niburu. The thing about Niburu is there's a few Dragon League players at my locals, as well as Earth Machines and Prank Kids, and this is just a great card to deal with those decks. Again, your Paleo is unaffected by monster effects, so if you have Paleo XYZs or Paleo traps on board when you're Niburu, you still get to keep your Paleo stuff, which is great. We are playing 3 Gamma Seal. This is not here for Winder, as I don't care what people say, Kaijus do not out Winder. This is here for Dragoon deck, because unless they have Ice Dragon Prison, I can't really out a Dragoon because all their Paleo traps target, which kind of sucks. You could play things like Dimensional Barrier, which I was playing previously, to out things like Dragoon, but the Kaiju also just answers more problem cards like Dragon Link and Winder, if I do happen to have Winder Dragoon decks playing against me. 3 evenly, just to go second, it's a blowout card and also it's a trap, so we can technically play it in a grind game. 3 Gozen. If you side this in going second, you can Gozen and then when they try and negate, you can strike them. So against things like Prank Kids and Dragon Link, it's a really good card. Also really good against Shoutout and Vote, because if they normal summon Alistair and you flip the Gozen on the Alistair, they're locked into Darks, so they can't make it Artemis to make Megaba. Floodgates are fun, playing 1 Imperial Order, again, just to stop these spells traps. This is good against Prank Kids, it's good against Invoke, it's good against Dragon Link, it's basically good against all the meta, but we're not going to main it because I don't know, actually I could main this, but I'm not. And then finally 2 Duster, just as some spell trap removal. We can afford to not play Cosmic, because again it's a trap card, so it will trigger your Payloads, and because it pops 2, it's a bit better in a grind game. And then of course we've got to have our Frog tokens, and Unicorn token, because why not?